Today we are going to talk about Moloch and my work with him. This will simply be my experience with the Divinity, and let's talk about how I started working with Moloch. And then I will explain who Moloch is to me and how I observe him and how he manifests to me. This is introductory video. I will film 3 videos dedicated to the great god of the Canaanites and one of the chiefs of Carthage and one of the great divinities of antiquity. Now, he came to me first in a serious manner after I performed the rite against pedophiles, which you can find on this channel. After I contacted him to design this ritual, he was really glad and he offered to work with me. But I refused. I simply told him I want to design this ritual, I want to film meditation, and that was it. But he kept coming from time to time and offering to teach me and to guide me. But I refused. But few days ago, he made me an offer I cannot refuse, and I accepted him. Not to be one of the spirits I work with, not to be one of the spirits I occasionally call, but he really wanted to be one of my patron divinities. So, on a path of demon magic, right now I can say that Lilith is my matron and Moloch is my patron. I will maybe change patron divinity in the future, but to be honest with you, Moloch is good for now. I didn't knew it, I really didn't knew it, but before this, Belial was my patron. But I actually didn't work a lot with him, and I didn't knew actually he's my patron. I made a pact with him to be the only spirit I work with for a time, but I didn't knew that he observed himself as my patron. So maybe I will leave Moloch and come to Belial again in the future, but in a case I do so, Moloch will never reveal to me his true mysteries. They will be closed for me. I will probably talk with Moloch about can I have like 2 male patrons, but maybe Moloch will refuse. I don't know. This is complicated. But yeah, Moloch simply came to me a few nights back, made an offer I cannot refuse, and became one of my patrons. Now, I will here simply say what is my personal experience with him, okay? My personal experience doesn't have to be the same as yours or anybody else's. To me, he is the king and the prophet. The king and the priest. And he is, but he is not king and the priest in the same way Odin is. Okay, Wotan or Woden, he is more like that kind of a king or the priest who kind of wanders the world and he does stuff and shit like that. Moloch or Molech is different. He is that kind of the priest and king who is in his temple all of the time and building his kingdom all of the time and governing. And he is relying on others to wander for him. He is not wandering directly, so he is that kind of king and the priest. And he is really, in my opinion, really transcendental deity. And really powerful one. I think that he is really misunderstood. and I will talk about how he is misunderstood later on. But he guided me for the purpose of this video to talk about sacrifice and to talk about offering. Well, many people in modern occult community have two misconceptions about sacrifices. One is that you shouldn't sacrifice anything. And another misconception is that you can sacrifice whatever you want to sacrifice. That it is just like you giving energy to the deity to do things you want him to do. Some kind of a you give me this, I give you that type of arrangement. And both of those things, according to Moloch or Molech, are really wrong misconceptions which severely weaken your spiritual practice. So, of course, sacrificing is about giving something up and dedicating it to the gods. But it is not what you think it is. You see, many people think that more you sacrifice physically, the bigger result will be. Blah, blah, blah. So they advocate for ridiculous amounts of animal sacrifice and food sacrifice and shit. But like, that's not the point. The point is not how big amount you give. The point is what the thing you gave up means to you. More it means to you, the bigger result will be. More you give up, which is dear to you, the bigger result will be. You can go the road of more physically you sacrifice, more goats you sacrifice, the bigger result will be. But that will give only chaotic and superficial result. You can give as many physical objects or animals as you wish, but if it doesn't mean to you, it will not truly manifest what you desire, or it will be chaotic and superficial manifestation. And in order for this to work, you kinda need to be able to speak with Divinity directly and give something you care about to the Divinity yourself, in front of the Divinity. So, whenever you use priest or somebody else to give this kind of a sacrifice for you as the middleman, it will kind of weaken the offering. In order for your sacrifice to make sense, you need to give up something dear to you. And that sacrifice needs to be painful. And it needs to be demanding. That's the point of the sacrifice. So, that's what Moloch taught me about the sacrifice. And he gave me an extreme example. So, this example will not be pleasant for everybody's ears. So, during the siege of Tyre, the old Phoenician city, Alexander the Great besieged Tyre with his army. He besieged the old Phoenician city with his army, and he started a really brutal siege. And the elders of Tyre became desperate. It is written in multiple ancient sources, I read a bunch of them, but I forgot their names. It is written that the elders of Tyre started sacrificing children to the gods again in order to save the city. yet the city fell anyway. And I called Moloch and I asked him, okay, the elders of Tyre sacrificed children to you and Baal Hamon. Why two of you guys didn't save the city? And Moloch replied simply to me, they sacrificed the children of their slaves. Why would I help them? It was his response. So, what the elders of Tyre did is they technically tried to trick Moloch to save the city by sacrificing the children of the slaves they bought in the marketplace. Of course, slaves probably didn't even originate in Tyre. They originated probably from some other nearby place. So, even the human sacrifice dedicated to Moloch and Baal Hamon was invalidated because it wasn't an honest sacrifice. It was just physical act of slaughtering somebody and giving energy up. Those children of the slaves didn't have any meaning to the elders of Tyre. And Moloch didn't aid them then. He didn't help them to save the city. Because they literally tricked the gods. So, this was a little bit extreme example, which actually happened in history. You have historical records of the elders of Tyre sacrificing children. And you also have the historical fact that the Tyre fell. But when I asked Moloch, he gave a really clear answer to this. There is plenty of historical and archaeological evidence that human sacrifice indeed occurred in the old Phoenicia, old Israel, and Carthage, and other Phoenician colonies. But I will talk about it for another day. It will be discussed in another video. So, one honestly written poem, written from the heart, or few honestly given drops of blood, or one pleasantly crafted piece of ritual jewelry means more to the divinities than bunch of slaughtered gods and bunch of slaughtered children somebody buys in the market. It's not about physical act. It is about sacrifice. It is giving something you hold dear. So, if you give extremely great thing which is really dear to you, if you give up relationship, if you give up your pet, if you give up your vital force, which is in the essence of your physical body, if you make this kind of an offering, then you will gain the true reward. But if you try to trick the gods and give them meaningless sacrifice, something which is meaningless to you, then there is a big chance it will be simply small and superficial result. Keep this in mind when you are giving offerings and sacrifices. And there is one last note regarding sacrificing. When you sacrifice, raise sacred space properly. Let it be fortified well. And then call the divinity up. Presence his essence really well. Why this is important? This is important because you want the divinity of your choosing to take all of the offering. Don't waste your offering or pieces of it on wandering spirits or impostors. When you do things, do them well. Do them with dignity and discipline. I myself was guilty of wild and uncontrollable magical behavior, and I will never forgive this to myself. Thank you for watching.